Jättegott.
Finns det ingen parmesan?
Oj, kolla här. Kolla här.
Då måste det vara en lavin eller?
Ja, den är kontrollerad. Det är såna jäkla krafter.
Är det safe?
Ja. De vet vad de gör.
Pappa!
Harry, det är lugnt. Harry!
That is an older video of an avalanche. And it's not my idea. I saw it on another podcast. And I don't remember whose podcast it was, but I know the guest was Alex Craner. And the point of it, which I want to relay to you, is in that avalanche, the father's sitting there and he says, "Oh, they have it under control." Well, who's they? I saw a shrink once for a short period of time. That's how he did it. Some girlfriend, something. And I don't know if I learned anything, but I remember one thing he said to me is that human beings, our emotions anyway, are pretty much defined by our previous 2 years. Of course, others want to say it goes all the way back to your childhood, and I don't know. I'm not a therapist. But he said pretty much your life, believe it or not, your reaction to things is how your last couple of years went. I don't know if it's true or not, but in this context, what it means is your body, your mind, your warning signals react to things you've recently experienced. Very few of you out there remember the 70s. I remember them. It was a period of my parents' divorce and all the heightened emotions and disruptions. But in the background, there was inflation, what they called stagflation, gasoline lines. A lot of people did without. I don't remember, because I was a kid, I don't remember if high inflation led to high home prices, but my memory is, and I wouldn't count on it, is home prices stayed flat or went down, but I wouldn't count on that memory. Interest rates didn't go above 13%. That's something Joe Biden and Delaware got passed, that interest rates can go as high as they do now. But the point of that video is that and I still can't figure out why. I think I know why. Like any person in power, you don't trust everybody, but you have a close group that you listen to. Everyone around Donald Trump is either Jewish refers to religion, but it also is a culture. I don't know. You can be a believer and be called Jewish, or a non-believer and be called Jewish. So I don't know how that works, but everyone around him is either a wealthy Jewish banker or Jewish son-in-law or Jewish advisor that are Zionists. But also around him and voted for him are Christian Zionists. And so what he hears is that Israel is our ally. I see no evidence at all that Israel has done anything ever in the interests of the United States, ever. They've only done it for themselves. That somehow we have to protect this democracy in the Middle East. And this nation of 8 million disgruntled human beings who, unlike many in the world, have been initially granted a homeland by driving out the existing population and are protected in that homeland, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. They got to slaughter, kill, starve, shoot Palestinians. They've got to go into Lebanon. They've got to go into the West Bank, go into Syria. Now they're going into Turkey, and they get Trump to bomb the crap out of a country that's been around for thousands of years and is bigger than two or three Texases. It's all because of the lying son of a bitch, Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump listens to him. I have seen some evidence that Trump has these views about Iran going back decades. So maybe he comes to it naturally. But for whatever reason, he had, I suppose, success in Venezuela. He's had success blowing boats out of the water, which I'm mixed emotions. I'm anti-drug, anti-cartel, anti-human trafficking. So I don't know. I'll just trust that he has evidence of what he's doing there. And he's had success in real estate with this style of negotiation that is brinkmanship. And a year ago, he had success supposedly getting rid of the nuclear threat from Iran. But, Netanyahu's been banging this drum for 30 years that Iran is going to have a nuclear bomb within 2 weeks. It's all lies. I do think Iran should have gotten the bomb. We wouldn't be bombing them today. Look at North Korea. But to me, it's at least plausible that Iran is trying to create a nuclear power industry in its own country. They have 100 million people. They don't have a lot of water. I personally don't believe they have that much oil left. Relative to the rest of the world, they have a lot. But oil in the Middle East, the reserves of oil in the Middle East were inflated overnight in, I'm going to say 74. But when OPEC was created and the ministers got together, they expanded their reserves by many multiples. Saudi Arabia went up to 260 billion barrels. I don't remember Iran's or Iraq's, but they all just trebled, quadrupled overnight, 5 times overnight. Some people argue that that was a matter of taking all the proven, possible, and probable, the probable and possible reserves and just booking them. But the reason they did it was to maximize their country's daily or yearly, their quota for production, because OPEC was designed to restrict oil. And so you, as a country, you wanted to represent that you had a big position. Therefore, you're cutting back off of this big position. You still end up somewhere near where you were going to be anyway. Well, ironically, and maybe not ironically, but, and I it's been so long since I studied the numbers, but Saudi Arabia has been producing full on, pretty much full on, for, if you count the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the, you know, whatever people call that, the aughts and the teens, and now we're in maybe our sixth decade from those highs. They've never cut their reserves. No country in OPEC has. So I don't really believe that Iran has the excess oil capacity to ship oil at volumes they need to keep their economy and their population satisfied. Remember, they have 100 million people. Saudi Arabia used to have, I don't know, in my head, it's like 15 million. I think now they're up to 30, 35 million. So they're consuming more of their own supply. They're getting high on their own supply. But Iran, if they need to burn their own oil, they don't have anything to export. That's my opinion. So it's at least plausible. One of the reasons they've been developing nuclear capabilities, my opinion again, is for their own domestic electricity needs. Now, I think we all do have to give credit to our intelligence services. They must be seeing something else. But I'm afraid that Donald Trump has listened only to the lying, mendacious, if that's not a redundant, scumbag Netanyahu. And if that's the case, Donald Trump has thrown his lot and made one gamble too many. But he always seems to be a very rational gambler, not a let it all ride for so little return. But this time, I think he's really stepped in it. There's the argument, which I've shared with you, and many of my friends believe. Ace, who you guys follow, believes it too. And it makes some sense. Because unless you expand what's going on in your brain, this is so illogical as to really question the sanity of everyone involved, or to think in supernatural terms like the devil. It is possible that what Trump has on his mind is to end the British Empire and the control that the British banks have over our military and over us and over the world's financial system. It's possible. But that supposes that they had that power, and they might. Compounding of interest and compounding of capital leads to great power. But it's assuming they have that power over us. They may. They may. I don't know. It could be Israel has power over us. You know, and we always hear that crappy terminology that it's Jewish bankers. I don't know that it's Jewish bankers. It might be British bankers. It could be the empire. It could just be that a lot of bankers have by coincidence have, I don't know. I don't think it's any of that. I think it is possible that Trump wants to get rid of the British Empire's idea of free trade, which takes advantage of the whole world for the wealth of the city of London. I saw that when the British Petroleum, the sloppiness and the cost cutting that went on that BP Horizon well. They treated us like we were a third world nation. They cheated. They poisoned the Gulf of Mexico, of America, I guess now. They poisoned it. And I tend to believe that Trump could be onto something there. We don't need the UK. I don't know. But what this avalanche is meant to portray, and I think you and I have run out of time, unless Putin can save Trump's ass and make a grand bargain like Scott Ritter described, where Putin says, you know, let us have Odessa, walk away from Ukraine, lift oil sanctions on Russia, negotiate on other things, and we will stay out of the Middle East, we'll back China down, and we'll allow you to rebuild your bases in the Middle East, and we can go back to the status quo. It's possible. But like that avalanche, it might be that we're all fooling ourselves and we're looking at the avalanche saying, oh, they have it under control. None of you, unless you're older than I am, have a memory of what it was like to be in gas lines, to have to shop every other day for your gasoline, to have inflation, to have economic times where everything was difficult, not for a weekend, for years. And I'm afraid that's what's coming. To me, there's no indication that Iran wants to stop this war. There's 100 million people all over the world, and they're pissed off. Our military is degraded. We don't have enough weapons. We have a very small military. It's mostly woke. We have way too many. We're top heavy in generals. I think we're overrating what we can do for I'm sure we can win against Iran. I'm sure we could nuke them off the map, but we don't have the army to put on the ground. We don't have the staying power. And I don't think Trump wants to be known to start a war. But I think this can spiral out of control. And what does that mean? The whole reason I'm going on about this is it looks like Iran wants to make sure we do not have bases in the Middle East. It looks like it's possible. You don't know what sources to believe, but it looks like one or two of our aircraft carriers have been hit and have moved away. I don't know. You can't know for sure. Qatar, which I believe is the world's largest supplier of natural gas, it's certainly something like 20 or 30% of the world's natural gas, is shut down. I think it's 20% of natural gas and 30% of fertilizer is shut down. The UAE shut down. Saudi largely shut down, but they can sell some oil through the Red Sea. We still believe the bullshit that the United States is independent in oil. We are not independent in oil. We are not self-sufficient in oil. Now, if you add in Venezuela and Canada, and maybe we go into Mexico, maybe, but we're not. Oil's priced on the margin, which when prices go down, it's hard to understand. But I believe you're about to see oil prices $150, $200, $250 a barrel, and it won't stop there. And it makes me mad because I wanted to build positions before this came, and I thought we had some time, maybe 2 to 5 years to build a portfolio. But Trump's gambled it all because he's listening to this asshole Netanyahu. And Susie Wiles, she can go jump off a bridge as far as I'm concerned. That's not nice. Maybe she can just move to Arizona to a condo made of stona and just retire. Oil at $200, $300, $400 a barrel. Your gasoline is going to be $25 a gallon. It's going to change your world. You better be living where you want to live. You're not going to travel. Food is going to be scarce because in the United States, we've destroyed our farmlands. We've degraded them massively on the search for profit. The Ukraine, for all I know, it's radioactive. But there's a war going on, and there's not enough fertilizer. I assume as our population declines, as it will, we will adjust to lower availability of oil, but the disruption in the meantime is going to change your lives. So I really wish that this war didn't happen. There's nothing we can gain. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Except that asshole Netanyahu has finally convinced a president to gamble it all for naught. There's nothing to gain. But I guess we're all capable of being fooled. And you can't discount that Trump has a strategy to get out of his own hellfire. And he may. And then we'll be lucky. We'll be able to build the positions that we're going to want. But I think I'll get off of this. I just want to tell you that I think you need to start, number one, drive around with a full tank of gas. Number two, take money out of the bank. Take $5 bills, $10 bills, $20 bills, store them in your house. Number three, buy physical silver, buy silver coins, buy bags of junk silver. APMEX is a good place, APMEX. Gold Silver with Mike Mahoney is another good place. There's others. Buy your monster boxes of silver. Buy gold. Be in gold. Be in gold and silver miners. Don't buy the ETFs unless it's a physical trust, because if our system falls apart, which it easily could, those ETFs are going to be found devoid of real silver. And then you just are in a lawsuit like you are with MMTLP, and good luck. So as much as I want Railtown to work, and then we have all these choices, I think you have to start thinking now, like that avalanche, there is no they. They don't have it under control. Gold is headed to 40,000, maybe $100,000 an ounce. Silver's headed maybe to those same prices. Oil, like I told you, I once asked Matthew Simmons, or it might have been on a video, or it could have been both. When is oil gonna, you said it was gonna go to 5 figures, or is that 6 figures? 6 figures. So when is it gonna go to $100 a barrel? And his answer was, I never said $100 a barrel. And he followed with his targets. And this was 12 years ago, 15 years ago. $600, $700, $800 a barrel. And if the Strait of Hormuz is shut, and if Iran is going to keep bombing, and I know the media says that Trump has knocked out all their capability. I don't know. I'm not a spy. But if they're able to cause uncertainty, and if other countries turn against us, of course, the economy's in trouble. We are, in the next 20 years, it will be evident that our populations in the West are going to crash. Women simply are not having children. And, that's their choice. It's their body. They get to, that's what we're convinced of. But okay, for the individual, maybe that's right. But as a species, and maybe that's good for the earth. I read this horrifying thing where I just can't believe it, that Bill Gates funded putting whatever you call it, bio poisoning, bio something, into ticks, cattle ticks, so that if a human being's bitten by that tick, they can't eat red meat at the risk of dying within hours. And the whole goal is to get human beings to stop eating cattle so that it helps the climate. Well, that's really devious, and maybe it's happening, but our population is heading downward massively. And maybe that'll rescue us in terms of an oil crisis. But anyway, that's all. The equilibrium is all 2 decades away. What our lives could be in the next month to the next 15 years is hell. And one thing you'll be, as you're going through it, as you're pulling up to the gas station and you're paying $20 a gallon, you fill up your tank for $300, you can pound your chest and be proud that you stood with Israel and that you're not anti-Semitic and that America went down the tubes to support a country of 8 million white supremacists. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I just want to alarm you that this complacency that I'm doing, I'm not ready for this. I was ready with my house and my account and my silver and my strategies. I'm not ready for this at all. But I think you're going to see high gas prices, shortages of food, inability to use your accounts. These are all possible. So start taking at least a few steps to protect yourself. Have water at home. Have foodstuffs at home. And have some cash. Have some junk silver. Go to Mike Mahoney's site and buy some of the gold jewelry that's just plain as hell. But if you have to get out of town, you can put $100 grand on your body and fly out of an airport and start somewhere else. But start thinking in terms of disaster. Hopefully my alarm bells are premature and unnecessary. But the DFC got bombed. I used to spend a lot of time there, and almost every time I went to Dubai, I stayed at the Emirates hotels right there. Israel will not exist after this. People will leave. Any women there will leave. Married women, families, they'll leave. So I don't know. My predictions could be wrong, but disruption is coming. And don't be complacent. Do not be complacent. Think of things. Think of escapes. Think of having a little bit in a safe at home. Think of protecting yourself and your family. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But just like that avalanche, it's headed our way. And I don't see any they that's going to stop it. It's something we were going to have to deal with anyway at some point when peak oil occurred and peak other metals, peak silver. But because of this idiotic roll of the dice, throwing it all in for nothing, just because he's surrounded by liars. Or people, maybe they're not liars. Maybe they sincerely believe that they can bring Christ back to this planet by creating a conflagration in the Middle East. I don't know. It's a lot to think about, and I don't think anyone can know for sure. The one thing that can save all of us is Vladimir Putin. He's been the adult for 20 years. I can see my dad yelling at me as I'm saying that. But if Vladimir Putin works for a grand compromise here to pull Trump's balls out of the fire, maybe we all go back to normal for a while. But remember this. Remember this. This is what's coming sometime in the future. The era of everybody living like spoiled children is over, I think, or soon to be over. And we have to make adjustments. So anyway, let's get off of that. My point, you don't have to agree with anything I say, and you can get mad at me if I've offended you. I really don't mean to say anything offensive or personally offendable, but I just want to raise alarm bells like this avalanche that hell's coming for breakfast. And it might be soon. And it's not going to be temporary. So we have to get our financial houses in order. And I think the best way still remains Railtown, unless the financial markets go to hell. But we have 18,400,443 Railtown. 18,400,000. Pretty big number. So let's talk about Railtown. I'm just thinking if I should show you this. There's an interview to get on a completely different subject, thank God. There's an interview with John Ruffalo and two lovely brunettes have this podcast. And they do a pretty good job of not interrupting him. But the beginning of the interview is very, as you would expect, tell us about where you're from and your background and your family. And it's interesting, but it's not really relevant to our investment. If I can find this interview, I thought I had it here. Jason Harbison sent it to me, and I really appreciate it. But you know what? I might not be able to find it. I listened to 50, 60 minutes of it, and it still went on further. And I'm not going to play that much of it for you if I find it. But it's an interview with John Ruffalo. And the part that gets interesting is when he's talking about Canadian sovereignty and Mavericks and Omer's Ventures and what he's trying to do to help keep Canadian enterprise and wealth in Canada. And one thing he talks about is intellectual property and how important. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Let's see where we are.
Foreign firms coming in.
Let's.
Money, and yes, you lose it, but like you had way more to lose the first time around, and so way more onus on you to make sure you knew how to evaluate who was going to be a winner and who was going to be a loser.
professional services, I got to tell you, in the consulting world, is harder because what are you selling? You're selling your brain, and trust.
Trust.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Right.
On very, very
And your
competitive
hot
deals.
looks.
Yeah, you're selling your brain and trust, but
Mhm.
You're also selling your capital.
Mhm.
And capital, goes a long way to help. It doesn't bridge. You don't want to be dumb money, of course, but having the capital does give you a seat at the table.
So you left Omer's in late 2018.
At the end of 2018, yeah.
But if we go a few years back, you had this initial idea for where you saw a gap in the market when it came to growth equity investing. Initially, you were looking to build it at Omer's.
Yes.
Can you talk us through, that original idea you had, and then ultimately what led you to go off on your own?
So, the years 2011 to 2014, the market was amazing, at least for us.
Yeah,
because we were only game in town. Valuations were very, very low, and the returns were spectacular. And
is that when your investment in Shopify and some of the other big players would have happened?
2013 it would have happened. Yeah. I think just to give you a sense, the very first one was 2011. It was Wave Accounting. And the pre-money valuation at the time was crazy. And right now, for that same company at the same stage, its pre-money valuation probably would now, for that same company at the same stage, would be 10x of where it was when I had done that. And so you didn't have to be a genius to identify. You just really had to have the right intestinal fortitude to really want to place the bet.
Right.
But it was a time of less competition. But what started to happen is these companies that were starting to scale in traditional industries, they're past their venture stages. There's no product market risk. They don't want to do a buyout transaction or go public. They wanted growth capital.
There's no option at that point.
There was a zero in Canada. So, and it would fall between, I'd go to our private equity guys and go, wow, that's a great company. One of the first one actually was Canada Goose. Danny Reese is a close buddy of mine. He came to me first, couldn't do the deal because it wasn't venture and it wasn't buyout.
It wasn't PE,
And then Bain Capital does it and smokes it. And then it was one after another. And then so by 2017, I got approval at Omer's to build Omer's Growth Private Equity. By 2018, you can clearly see the market. It's moving clearly. And now that, I'm building it and hiring the team, it became very, very apparent that two things happened. Number one, the market was going to go. And number two, building a new business in between two other businesses squeezes you.
The two other businesses being the early stage and the super late stage.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was squeezing me in the middle. Like the private equity guys started saying, oh, so what are you building? Hey, isn't that our territory? It's like, no, you're doing majority. I'm doing minority. Yeah, I know, but we could do minority too. Well, you don't.
Well, you don't do it. Now you're going to do it.
But we want to reserve the right to. And it's like, well, come on, guys.
That's all the politics at that point.
The politics started to go. You can clearly see it.
Yeah.
And I also started to see, holy crap. And, well, I've done all of this work over the last couple of years. Maverick's private equity really is Omer's Growth Private Equity.
You brought it to life.
That's what it is. And that's why when people have said, the moment I had left, how did I move so fast in 2019? Well, the truth of the matter is that I spent so much time, starting in 2015, but really starting in 2017. I had a 2-year head start. I knew exactly where
you
to
had the
go.
blueprint, you had the foundation laid.
I already had a white paper done in 7 days. And I go, how did you do that so fast? Because I've been chewing on this. So I already, right at the beginning of 2019, went into fundraising mode right out of the gate.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because I feel like the success stories like the Shopify's, they become cultural anchors. Like everyone still 10 years later is like, they are our tech darling. And I think what it proves is this country is so hungry for homegrown success stories.
Yeah.
And I think firms like Mavericks are enabling it, but it's like, what else needs to happen for us to, and you say this all the time, to have 5, 10, 15, 20 more Shopify's? What either culturally or from a policy point of view, what else needs to change to support firms like yours?
And this is, so at the same time, in 2015, by the way, when you start to see, this is moving, and it's no longer about the startup, but the scale ups to get more Shopify's. That's when Jim Balsillie and I created the Council of Canadian Innovators in 2015.
Oh, I forgot about that, yeah.
Right. That is what really triggered Mavericks, is the capital, in essence, supporting those kinds of companies. And there was 3 things that they need: access to capital, access to talent, and access to customers and markets. That's what we've been doing for 10 years, those 3 areas. And on the access to capital issue is one that,
you guys are trying to solve.
I'm trying to really solve it. And that's Mavericks.
Yep.
The access.
How would you score us in Canada right now on the access to domestic capital problem?
We went in 2010 from, I actually scored it a 1 out of 10. And then in 2015, 2016, I scored it a 7 out of 10.
And
not perfect.
Day?
We're back to about a 2.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to me because 10 years, the glory days is that 2011. This was the start of the Renaissance, 2011. The reason why people make the comment about being the godfather or grandfather or whatever it is because
the godfather, because you're Italian.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
So much
I
more.
prefer that way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Grandfather makes you feel old. The first significant move was Omer's, and so I don't credit it per se by triggering the Renaissance. I say it was the first major enabler because it was finally a pool of domestic capital, and in those first few years, we swept everything. We took every great opportunity in this country, and at Omer's, they never believed there was that many good companies. And after only 2 years, I already raised the second and then the third fund, and then I got external capital because they started to see, oh my God, we need this again. And I will say to you, and the circumstances have changed, but it's the same Canadian feeling. We've got great companies here in this country, but we make it so hard for them. So, for example, on customers and markets, why is it that a great company has to go to the United States to get their first customer and Canada waits, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, now government has woken up on that, and we fought for government procurement to support economic development for 10 years. And all of this stuff that we framed in 2015, we created literally the whole issue of sovereignty. Now everybody uses it. And now we were speaking more about Canadian digital sovereignty and fought for it like crazy. There's a reason why Jim and I fought Sidewalk Labs hard. It was a fight against digital sovereignty. People criticized us. Now they see what we were fighting against. Now Canada finally sees, my God, if we don't control under our own laws and our own future, we will be the 51st state, or we will be whatever pawn to it. And I got to tell you, the greatest credit to finally giving Canada the shake that it needed was actually Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Because without him, they never believed that there was really an issue. Now everybody not only believes it, but sees it. You're reading it every day.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason Sam and I started this podcast. We're like, we just need more Canadian voices out there speaking boldly, sharing their views, and visionaries that care about this country and the economic impact this country could have globally. So I think that was you nailed it. I think everyone's now just waking up.
It's waking up. We've been asleep for 10 years. It's not over. And 2 days after the Genius Act was passed, I think it was July 18th, I can't remember. So this is the U.S. Act that basically legitimizes and creates a framework for stable coins. So, and another way people kind of think of it, it's kind of the first legitimacy for the crypto world, but in a truly, it's not about crypto bros and all that stuff and all the coins. This is really something that's functional.
Yeah.
How do you move money? And I read this and went, oh my God, this might be the single worst thing that could happen to Canada from a sovereignty perspective. If we don't have control over our monetary system, it really is the de facto US dollarization of Canada. Think about that. We fought when Trump started saying that, and yet this act, in essence, does it in an indirect way. And I reached out to the bank CEOs. I reached out to Bank of Canada, PMO, Finance, and I just said, hey, folks, have you read this? I think this is serious. And then I followed that up with a couple of articles that ended up getting, op-eds in the various newspapers. I have never seen government, banks, academic, regulators, etc., move this fast in my entire life. And we hope to see the legislation show up on November the 4th. But I can't say I've ever seen anything. This all happened inside of 3 months. Canada all aligned, under a common enemy in a way, and moved faster than I've ever seen. So talk about hope. This is the sort of responses that we need in a whole variety of industries. And what I love is the whole idea of Buy Canada, supporting our Canadian companies, procuring services from Canadian. Like, when was we've never in my entire career have even had that discussion, and the general public is on side on that. This is a moment now. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. I guarantee you that. But this is the path for the future of this country. So I am excited we're finally in this path.
Yeah. Would you say, so right now we are really, as a country, taking Canadian sovereignty seriously?
We are, from what we're saying.
And then I have a follow-up. Now
let's just watch the actual actions.
See what happens.
I'm putting my money where my mouth is, my last 4 investments, and now we're working on the 5th one right now. All on sovereignty, all of it. And we believe it so much. And, this is where our deep domain. I spent 10 years on this issue. I know exactly what we should be doing, but I need government help, not for dollars. I don't need any money. I need frameworks. And you say, what do you really mean by that? And this is the difference. Up until literally 3 months ago, we thought about our economy in the physical sense. We didn't care if capital came in, whether by foreigners or not. So let's just think of the auto industry. They build a nice plant, hire a whole bunch of workers. Then you have the economic supply chains around that, the car parts, the restaurants, etc. You figure out what your economic multiplier goes, you know what? This is wonderful. Who cares that the company is American? We don't care. Okay. Now contrast that on the digital economy. And again, not to pick on Google, but let's just use Google. Canadians use Google services in the billions of dollars. And they have a small group of people here. Where is the where's the supply chain? Where's the economic supply chain? In fact, there is none. And make it even worse, it's extractive through intellectual property rights.
Right.
And this is where the stroke of the pen dictates how much we have to pay for licensing, and it actually extracts economic value. It goes the other way. It takes it out of the country and lands it into either the home country or in a tax haven country. And so having domestic winners in the digital economy is fundamental to our future. And if you don't believe me, look at who are the 7 most powerful, valuable companies in the world. They're all US-based technology companies. How did that happen? Well, when it was interesting? Do you know when the United States made their first moves from understanding digital economy frameworks? Magically, 1994 pops up again. And in their trade agreements, first trade agreement had an intellectual property section in there, they started to see it doesn't matter about the physical stuff. It's the economic rents of you using stuff. So they are 3 decades in, and we just started 3 months ago. That's the difference.
Is there a mindset shift you think needs to happen so that we can be more proactive in the way that US is thinking about both like policy as they're developing new industries?
So definitely, here's the problem. Almost everyone, there are exceptions, in the bureaucracy, federally, provincially, think of the post-World War II industrial strategy. And they don't understand data frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand intellectual property. They don't understand regulatory frameworks. They don't understand, like, for example, again, I'm not picking, but I use this as an example. We talk about sovereignty, and OpenAI says, hey,
we want to build data centers in Canada. Yeah, I saw that one.
Dudes, like, hey, OpenAI, like, smart folks, like, they're being logical. Like, and then I saw a few government folks say, I think it's a good idea. Like, are you insane?
Yeah.
Like,
but now we're doubling down on our own data infrastructure, right?
We are starting to.
Okay.
And then the question is the level of sovereignty, because ultimately, and I made an investment most recently where we booted out the U.S. incumbents, and we are replacing it with Canadian technology, but all the way down through its supply chain, like chipsets, et cetera, because there's always back doors.
Right.
And the thing that, again, I was astonished, I had to do this a year ago. I was giving the example of, and it was to the government, like, we have our data on largely US-based hyperscalers, Google, Microsoft. Are you not concerned with the US Cloud Act? And all the response was, what the hell is that? Went, dudes.
Not informed.
Yeah, not one knew what. I had to send it to all of them. And they didn't even believe it, because it's the US, let's call it right, for extraterritorialism, whereby the U.S. government, now through a subpoena or a court order, can demand the data of a Canadian company that's resident on the servers of a U.S. company. They don't have to notify the aggrieved party. They don't have to notify the Canadian government. And I said, this is our sensitive government data on this. Are you guys crazy? And they still didn't believe. So I wrote a lot about this on LinkedIn. I got, the odd trashing saying, oh, you're being dramatic and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, the pivotal moment was, I want to say it was June of this year. Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, in front of an audience in France, said, if the U.S. tries to order us through a court order, we will sue them. Which was another way of saying, oh my God, it is true. And it blew up. And I sent that thing to everyone. And they were like, this is the sovereignty issue, right? And so how far do you go? Now, the truth is, on AI data centers, every GPU right now is largely NVIDIA. Every chipset in the world has a backdoor. Everyone. So are they still going to get access to the backdoor? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit harder, but is it technically possible? There's a backdoor on everything. So even on that circumstance, ultimately, Canada should be developing its own chipsets. And if you remember, a lot of that, where did the NVIDIA chipsets come from? Canada. ATI Technologies. Didn't that ring a bell? That was the gaming chipsets.
No, neither did I.
Markham. And then we had it.
Yeah.
In Markham,
And we sold it.
This is the story that you hear over and over again. Yeah.
You know, Canada's leadership is in photonics. So photonics is the use of light or lasers to move data. So what is now driving the latest innovations? So satellites. So a company here called Kepler. It's photonics, the fastest satellite system in the world, Toronto. Xanadu.
We're so good at invention. We're just not. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't make the money.
Too, right? Like
Yeah,
that's another
this is space.
industry.
This is
that
going to
we've
be
been
it's a Leo
really
satellite.
driving it. Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Xanadu, quantum computing. It's quantum photonics. You go through all this and go, oh my God, it's all still here. We're still a world leader in photonics, and yet Canadians don't know about it. So other countries say when they're producing a chipset in the photonic industry, they only go to 3 countries in the world. One's in Singapore. I think that was in Netherlands, and the other was in Canada. And yet the public doesn't even know that. And it's sitting in Ottawa.
I have a question on the whole sovereignty piece. One thing I never understand, and maybe it's because I'm not well read enough. I open my computer and there's so many articles any given day on like we need to increase competition, open the borders, let more foreign countries in, because then it'll force our Canadian, whether it's banks or other industries, to innovate more. So there's that whole angle of increased competition, whether that be from foreign companies or Canadian companies. And then it feels like that's counter investing in sovereignty. Like, are the two at odds, or am I just understanding things incorrectly?
No, you're not.
Because I'm just like, sometimes I don't get which side of the equation.
The importance of sovereignty, but also not going too far down the protectionist route.
Well, that's the risk, right? So you say, so why is this confusion? You know why? Because there's a bunch of U.S. lobbyists or Canadians are getting paid by U.S. tech firms in particular that do not like what I say or Jim Balsillie says, because they're saying, well, you're just blocking us out and you guys are going to become very close.
Insular, and you're not going to innovate, and then there's downstream
that's
risks,
not what we're saying whatsoever. What we're saying is, if you want to grow wealth of a nation in the industrial economy or the post-World War II economy, we equated job growth with wealth growth. So as long as there was more jobs, economic multipliers, etc. In the digital economy,
that's not the case.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
It's based on who owns the intellectual
the
property.
data, the IP, everything else.
So
at the end of the day, that's the difference. So we got a whole bunch of foreign firms coming in. They'll provide, and they always say, "Oh, we'll provide jobs. We'll provide 100 jobs, 1,000." The battery plants, $13 billion. We'll provide 1,000 jobs. That's it for $13 billion. Are you crazy? What could we have done with putting $13 billion to the incredible technologies that we all have developing here? We could create a perpetual wealth creation machine. So it's not to block foreign capital, because we need it. Where I agree is, we use regulatory capture to really block competition, whether it's banks, telecom, media. Some would argue grocery stores, even though that's not a regulatory monopoly. But we've made it difficult for Canadian competitors to compete with Canadian incumbents. And as an example, you're going to see in this budget, there's going to be finally, after 8 years, the announcement of the open banking. And so will it open it up fully? Probably not. But these are the sorts of things that we need to do so that the power is not with incumbents. And what's going on right now, say in the LLM world, the big companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, who have huge resources, are trying to encourage governments to regulate, because when you regulate, it allows the big players to win, because regulation is very expensive to comply with. And it basically is a tax on startups. So it's those sorts of things. But it's getting the right balance. Right now, we're out of balance. This is a time to push the pedal on Canada and Canadian companies. It doesn't mean it's not Canada only. It's Canada first. And that's what I want our government to think. It's not Canada only. It's not about being isolationist. But for the first time, for God's sake, Canada first.
Beside policy change that needs to happen, is there not a changing of the guards that needed, but an actual talent change within government to reflect this more modern understanding of like What's the game that we're playing right now? Because right now we're playing by the rules of an old game.
Yes. So massive education is required. I help train various departments on this, and I love the questions that they're asking. And I got to tell you, Trump is being really, like, almost painfully transparent. The American businesses, particularly now the technology businesses, they get the top experts and they're engaged, and they have these economic councils. They write the rules. Mm-hmm. The U.S. Genius Act, which, damn, I wish I wrote that. It really was genius, I hate to say. It was written by David Sachs and the team of crypto guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They did it for a year before Trump was even in power. Boom. That's how they hit it so fast, right? Yeah. What do? We get a bunch of bureaucrats who, obviously, hardworking, good. They don't have a clue. Like, we go into a gunfight with a knife.
Yeah.
So the one thing that we're saying is, folks, build get the private sector in there telling you, and go, arm to arm with them. But even on the trade negotiations, who do they bring? Like, CEOs of financial service. They bring former folks, from Goldman Sachs like crazy. Howard Lutnick, ran his firm. They bring those folks. What do we bring? Bureaucrats.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to get over the false belief that if we have private sector involved, that the government somehow becomes corrupt. Because I think, like, that's where we fall on, is like, well, the U.S. operates like this because they've all donated to these super PACs, and that's their influence, and it drives, so it's like, I think it comes from Canada wanting to be this very egalitarian society and show this level of diplomacy, but we're hurting ourselves by not remaining competitive.
We're a bunch of Boy Scouts, and we think it matters, and yet every other country in the world is viewing this sovereignty topic. Like, folks, like, we will be more respected in the United States when they go, boy,
they did something different.
They're fighting.
They're swinging for it.
What are you guys doing fighting back? How dare you fight back?
Yeah.
There's going to be legislation in this budget coming up. It's the biggest fight back.
Yeah.
And it was predicated. And when I met with the folks in government, I said, you need this as part of your trade discussions. You need to pound them right back in the face. But it's not, some of the silly stuff that we're doing. It's like, hey, we got to take care of ourselves. You did it. We're just doing what we think is good for Canada. I think you get respect on that and realize, okay, these guys are not, dummies. But again, I experienced it in Sidewalk Labs, where Google was being really logical. And I had no issue with Google whatsoever, although Google had, I think, a big issue with me, and not in Canada, but in the United States. I had the issue with the politicians who were kissing their butts and were handing them the keys to the city and giving them special taxation powers. You were privatizing taxation. And it's like, are you guys just that naive? So we were attacking, waterfront Toronto and our politicians who couldn't get over themselves of trying to appease. And now they realized it was the Trojan horse. But that's the same thing now. We're acted like Boy Scouts. There's no friendship in countries. It doesn't exist. There's allies, but not friendship. So it's always think of your interests first. The U.S. does it. They do it exceptionally well. I don't get offended one iota when the U.S. is looking for their interests. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, and hopefully we can see that change. And I think slowly we're getting there.
Yeah, we started off horribly bad. Learned this the hard way. In any deal negotiations, all about power and leverage.
I'm sure a lot of your exposure to how the U.S. operates differently than us also comes from you working with other investors in the States at Mavericks. Can you talk us through just raising your first fund and what your experience has been so far?
Sure. So I already knew what the thesis was, but actually the thesis, the starting point, and I still have the white paper that I did. So in January of 2019, it was predicated on the world falling apart. Okay, and there's a individual. He's a geopoliticist. He's a good friend of mine who I've been following like crazy, and he's probably top 2 in the world in this space. His name is Peter Zayan. He wrote this book called The Accidental Superpower. And it basically talked about the United States is going to lead the deglobalization of the world because they're going to revert back to how the U.S. operated before World War I. The U.S., people always forget, was last to come in World War I, was last to come in World War II. They came at the very end. Canada was at the beginning of both because they followed Britain. And the U.S. has a policy of being isolationist and funding the world, in essence. So this was ordained after 1991, after the Berlin Wall fell and then Russia fell. The whole system was predicated, and that was the Bretton Woods Agreement.
Yep.
It was all predicated on bribing the entire world, basically, to not follow communism. And the 2 countries in particular was Germany and Japan. And what they did is, following the war and through the Marshall Plan, they said, you are able to trade and rebuild your economies by trading into and using our country as the biggest market in the world. And man, did that ever work well, right? And isn't that kind of weird? You destroy 2 countries and they then become, at the time, the 2nd and 3rd most powerful economies in the world. Like unbelievable success. But what happens when communism fails, which it did in 1991? And the U.S. has been trying to determine, how do they retreat from the world? And we believed that it was going to start to happen in 2020. And if it did happen, supply chains break apart, the world becomes a more dangerous place, the advent of all these technologies, all of this discombobulation. Now, what we got grossly wrong was we thought the world was going to go to hell starting in the second half of 2020. By the way, I'll come back to it. We probably would have been close to being right if it wasn't for COVID, by the way, because it delayed everything a couple of years. But we thought the U.S. was going to retreat, and we were going to create Fortress North America. And if you dust off, in the 1850s, the president at the time created the Monroe Doctrine, which basically was the United States controls North and South America and protects the oceans. And we live in our isolated box, and we're protected from everything, all the other crap that goes on in the world. We thought the same thing was going to happen. We were almost right, except we didn't think Canada was going to be a target. We thought Canada was you have to get even more tethered to the United States under Fortress North America. By the way, we still have a possibility of getting there, maybe. But I was adamant that was going to happen too. So our whole investment thesis is predicated on what is going to become critical. So we knew understanding AI, quantum, robotics, space, etc.
Yeah.
We also knew sovereignty over data, communications, energy resiliency, healthcare, food supply, mobility, transportation, and defense. Last one I added most recently was money and the monetary system. Things that make our country work. We ignored this for the last 3 decades.
And now you're doubling down on it.
This is what all our investments are. And it's been unbelievable in the past year and a bit. But in the last 3 months, it's gone through the roof.
Having seen so many cycles like the dot-com crash, financial crisis, everything that's happening with AI right now, has your approach to investing changed at all? Would you? Well, I assume yes, but over the last couple decades?
the approach hasn't, but what you invest does.
Yeah.
Approach is still largely the same, but I'll tell you, in your question, what's really interesting what you ask? This is the hard part of investing. So now that we're moving from physical economic frameworks to digital ones, here's the problem. In the digital world, it may not be winner take all, but it might be 3 winners take all. And the reason is, again, it's through the regulatory capture and through the fact that intellectual property frameworks could extract such massive economic rents that you get a few really dominant players, and it's hard for incumbents to compete because those players get so big so fast.
Right.
So
Google, Amazon, they're all sucking out. They're hollowing out even the small players in the United States. So you think about Amazon. Amazon has hollowed out all of the small shops in middle America, et cetera, right? That was not, that's regulatory. They sucked everything. So they have all of the profitability. And so here's the problem with that is the same thing is going to happen from a sovereignty perspective. So as opposed to having 50 players competing in a space, it might be 3. So as an investor, you better get in one of the 3.
Yeah.
On the LLM stuff, I said it from day one, and it's going to happen. When you had, ChatGPT and Anthropic, and you had Llama and Meta, and on Mistral and Cohere, said there's going to be 3 players. That's it. And if you don't believe me, look at infrastructure like investments, airlines. United States, 3 airlines. Canada's 1. Telecom, 3 telecoms. Grocery, 3 groceries. Oh my God, this automakers. 3.
Yeah.
This rule of 3, it becomes problematic in the digital space. So as an investor, I think about it way, way more. And I think about how do I make sure that I'm one of those 3? And if I'm not in one of the 3, or if I'm in one of those 3, I want to be in the first one. But as long as I'm in those top 3, I'm going to be okay. Or I better be in one that's going to sell to one of those 3, and that's how I do it. So
how do you spot if
it's
you're like
really,
decades in this?
It's really hard. It's become harder. So my understanding of a decade of regulatory frameworks through the Council of Canadian Innovators and all the work has made me a much, much more valuable and thoughtful investor, because I could see through intellectual property rights or data framework rights, etc. I can see who may or may not be a winner, not perfectly by any stretch, but I think about it. And still a lot of investors have this idea of separating government from business. I'm like, folks, no, it's the same thing. And they look at the United States, how they combine the 2 wonderfully.
I'd love to pivot a little bit to personal. So when you were launching, it was before the launching of the first fund that you got into your accident. Is that correct? Can you just take us, and it might be a little bit difficult, but take us back to that point in time.
Okay. That's a 2-hour and 46 interview. She's going back to the personal, which is more interesting, I guess, for everybody. But I don't think it really, we've gone over his bicycle accident, and maybe we can play that later. But the human interest story part of this interview isn't why I played it. I wanted you to see who John Ruffalo is and some of his thoughts. I don't know exactly how it interweaves with Railtown, other than certainly the discussions of data frameworks and et cetera apply, of IP apply, of potentially being bought out by one of the top three, as he calls it, the rule of three, probably applies. His commitment to everything Canadian, he said he had invested in 5 investments recently. I can't help but think one of them is Railtown, but it might not be. It might not be. Maybe that's still to come. Certainly AIP partnerships he might have been talking about, but he didn't break it down. Anyway, that's the flavor of John Ruffalo and some of his thoughts. The first part of the interview, as any interview with chicks, is going to be about, tell us about yourself, which, me being a dick, I don't really care about. So if you want to watch that whole interview, it's called The Fight for Canada's Digital Sovereignty. And it goes on after that, but I can't read the rest of it. And those 2 interviewers are called Between Two Brunettes. Between Two Brunettes. And you can listen to that instead of listening to me. Gosh, I wish I were more prepared. I wanted us to own oil and gas properties, particularly one natural gas group. I wanted us in gold, silver, mining companies, but man, it might be all just happening much more quickly, which is, I've noticed ever since the pandemic, and since digital, everybody turned to their phones, everything's sped up. Everything is sped up. Tall trees in Georgia, they grow so high. And sadly walking through the thickets go I. Well, we've put Marines on the ground. 5,000 Marines are in the Strait of Hormuz now. All right, so the next thing I was thinking we could do, and I wonder how to do it would be best, is just try to doodle what possible, maybe mega scenarios could happen for Railtown. And we can do that now, but let me go through your comments first, see if there's anything else to talk about. I didn't type anything out or have it to present. I want to use my whiteboard because that gives flexibility to change midstream. And it's kind of showing you what you can do yourself. Of course, I always start, if I'm having a cup of coffee and I'm thinking about it, I get a blank piece of paper and my calculator and just start playing with it. But one's brain gets into habits of patterns, I guess, of assumptions. So you're not a guy like me doing it many different weekends. I might always come up with the same sort of answers. So sometimes you have to challenge your assumptions and be extreme one way or the other. Like, am I off the deep end here, or am I being too conservative? Just to shake it up. Anyway, we can do that in a second. I'll go through your comments. Before I do, I just want to show you again how great you guys are. You're at 18,400,000 shares, which when you think of it is incredible. What you've done is you've shown professionalism. When these criminals, it's not just criminal action. Stocks go up and down. Markets go into prolonged periods of being suppressed on their own. But in the case of Railtown, my opinion is they've suppressed the price for basically a year. And you've taken advantage of that. You've built a huge position. Now, I'm colored a little bit by my experience in the markets back when even low price stocks had a following, they had research, had trading desks, investment banks, road shows, secondaries, and the prospectuses were stacked in the conference room. You go grab one, read it, study it. I would go down to the SEC and go into the stacks if necessary. Now everything's online. Oddly, there might be more information availability, but there seems to be fewer people taking advantage of that. And there's not any following of these stocks under $5 anymore. So the markets have changed. So I might be biased in my opinion that I think Railtown should be trading higher on its own sum. How'd that song go? I can't remember. Be on your own sum. Anyway, so just put that I might be somewhat wrong, but I think without the heaviness, Railtown, and the information that used to be out there, and then just connecting some of the dots, I think Railtown should be $1 or $2 now. But again, my bias is to how the markets used to be, and maybe even without the heaviness there, the stock would still be, I don't know, under $1 anyway. But that, I think it's all about to change. And once it does, it's going to be like that often quoted Hemingway line, slowly at first and then all at once. I think that's what's going to happen. All right, let me just quickly go through some of your comments because I'm going to try to find one article to start with. And if there's a lot of comments here, I don't think there's a lot. I probably annoyed everybody. I didn't expect to start the way I did, but these are thoughts that petrify me, so sometimes they come out. I really think the world is going to go through a period of dislocation, and it just might be starting now instead of in 5 years. E. Belanger, Friday the 13th. I didn't know that. Let me look. You're right. You're right. That must be good luck. E. Belanger, time to go up. E. Belanger added 350. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. T. Alex is second. Hi, T. Alex. Akira Nova. Hello, William and everyone. Hi to Akira. Silver Skyrocket. How are you? He says hi to everyone. T. Alex says hi to everyone. Steve, hi, Uncle Bill and crew. Picked up. I love it. Steve's going to be king. Pretty soon he's going to be king. All of you guys are going to be kings and queens, kings of your own domain. Joe Marty, good morning all. Way to go, Steve. D-Mac, greetings. Steve, it's 2.4 times the size of Texas. All right. And Texas is big, you know. Texas is, if you go from Houston and you drive west on your way to LA, when you reach the Texas border, you're halfway there. This is a big state. All right, 2.4. So I said 2 to 3, I think. So I got it basically right. Jack Hamilton, happy Friday, Sir William. Please add 68 more. You're going to catch up with Donna. Ever slowly, 95. Wow, Jack. I think I remember you were down in the 60s. That's pretty impressive. Jack, well, second bid went through. Please add 478 more. Wow. I guess we're going to test my theory that conference has anything to do with nothing. But 96,000. Donna's starting to get worried. No, she would be happy for you to catch up with her. I think it's great. I really do, that you've made it that far. Original plank stuff. Wow. Added 2525. New total 69925. All right, that's awesome. That's another great number. You guys are gonna be amazed. I think you're going to be amazed. Those are predictions, of course, not promises, but I think you're going to have a good time ahead. Steve says, thanks, Joe Marty. Ricky Brogan says, hi, William and RT crew. Solomon, hi, Unc. Bought 50 more. I love it. I love it. I love it. You guys are great. 40. Yeah, okay. That's a great position. It's an awesome position. 40,000 shares. If it goes to 15, which I hope is low, but we've got to admit they could. That's 600 grand. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Still have my name sewn on my shirt. I'm an ordinary dude. I still have to work. up in the mountains, in and out of, in and out of. I grew up in the mountains, in and out of. Can't remember the lines. Can't remember the lines. And no lines are coming to my head. Long ago and far away, in my common labor shoes, I turned which way, something like that, just because you asked me to. Like unto no other field, simple love is simple truth, and all that matters is I do anything you ask me to. Donna, hello, I purchased $9.89. All right. The race is on. Donna bought $9.89, and she's so kind. She doesn't put her total up there. You know why? Because she doesn't want Jack to feel badly, because she's so kind. But I think she's ahead of Jack probably by 6,000 shares, 8,000 shares. But I think it's great. I mean, that's close enough. It's the same league. Texas is huge, but Alaska is 2.5 times bigger. So why don't they say it's almost the size of Arkansas? You mean Alaska. That's what they should say. That's what they should say. Shay Viscuta, hello, William. Do you see any reason why Railtown couldn't be in the S&P 500 by 2028? Well, it's not strictly a U.S. company. I don't know if that matters. And I think it'll be bought this year. So I don't think Railtown will even exist in 2028. It could. I mean, if it does, we really have something much bigger than we think. If Railtown were to succeed at the Telus data center in a spectacular way, and as John Ruffalo was talking about, IP and sovereignty, of course, but also trying to have, I forget the words he used, but the licensing, the rents, the economic rents of the IP. I mean, there is a world you could envision where Railtown aligns itself in some sort of JV or some sort of partnership with a NVIDIA or something, stays standalone, and then just earns gigantic revenues, either directly from its products being sold in NVIDIA stacks, for example, I'm making that one up, around the world, or on Microsoft data centers around the world, or it becomes something that's licensed to everyone, or some format like that, in a neutral way. So that, I guess there's a path where Railtown could stand alone and then become a giant. But I really think it's low odds. I think the most likely is that the company gets bought. I think if I had to give odds, I would go with 65% odds that the company gets purchased at $15 a share, plus or minus 5 or even 750. So in other words, it's possible it gets bought at $10 a share, give or take, instead of $15 a share, give or take. I hope not. I hope we're beyond that lower target. But anyway, I'd give it 65% odds it gets purchased in that sort of $15 plus or minus, maybe minus 5, maybe plus 750. I'd put that in the 65%. And I think I'd give it maybe 25% odds that it would sell in the $25, $30, $35 range. Let's say $30 price plus or minus $5. And I'd give it 10% that the company sells at $50 plus or minus, let's say $10. But I think we have to anticipate that the company will be sold more quickly and at a lower price than perhaps would have occurred if it had stayed on its own. The growth, though, I think will happen in wherever it is. If it's inside another company, we might pick up some of that growth in our accounts, but it won't be as dramatic because it'll be spread out inside a giant company. But I'd say the reasons it won't be in the S&P is I don't think it's going to exist. I think that's the biggest reason. I think it'll be inside TELUS or Microsoft or Oracle or somebody. Right? You never know. There's always hope. All right, let me see if I can find. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I don't think it's going to be as easy as I expected. It might. It might be as easy as I expected. I already went over this article, but I think it's a good place to start as we talk about potential valuations. This one, that was AOL. TELUS CEO's parting shot, $2 billion in AI revenue by 2028. That's what I don't know who this William Temple is, but you and I have been talking about this for quite a while, this exact same quote, but maybe it looks better that it's under the banner of AOL. But 2 billion is the number he wants investors to remember. Do you remember the 21st night, September? So TELUS targets 2 billion in AI revenue by 2028, from 800 million to the 2 billion. He's handing over an organization which has become an AI business. And then the quote is, quote, AI enabling capabilities revenue targeted to grow from 800 million in 2000 last year to approximately 2 billion in 2028 across TELUS Digital and TELUS Business Solutions, including important contributions from our sovereign AI factories. The sovereign AI factories angle is interesting. I swear this was written by Claude. And they're looking for partnerships for the healthcare unit. But right down here, TELUS's AI revenue trajectory is what Entwistle wants investors to understand. So yeah, let's leave that out. So one of the first things I want to point out to you is you sit down to calculate, if you do with a pad of paper. Oh, let me look what the price is doing. So Railtown is 36 cents. It's flat. It's still above Ricky's trend line. Help HLP is down almost a penny. No, now it's down 2 pennies as I was watching. It's now 103. Finger is up half a penny at 136.5. So that's had a nice, 30%, 35% run this year so far. I'd still be nervous they got to punch through financing, but for you intrepid investors, you've picked up 30%, which is a nice annualized return. GDC's 390. Nixie's down almost a penny at 55.89. The Dow is green slightly. Everything else is red. And it's awful. That guy that drove into a synagogue, they have his picture. It's just terrible. All right, so the war hasn't changed. All right, so a couple of things we know. We know approximately fully diluted. There's 227 million shares outstanding, fully diluted. I mean, who knows for sure? So we know that's how many shares are out. And FD, it's not, it's how many they have out plus warrants and options. The then we know the AIP revenue, and let's project to 2028. What is exiting 2027, the forward 12 months? I think we can say that AIP will be by then maybe 200 companies. Their revenue is 500 million collectively. I bet that grows significantly. And I would say, I don't know. I would say 40% of their revenue goes toward spending on the data centers, the hyperscalers. So that'd be 200 million that by I'm talking about the forward 12 months, exiting 27. I think it's likely, possible, you can come up with your own numbers, that they'll do 200 million in forward 12 months spending at TELUS. And once it's there, it stays at TELUS and it grows at TELUS. And I'm going to assume a 20% payout. So that's 40 million in ARR projected for 2028 from AIP, 40 million. 200 companies, assuming that the growth in their hyperscaler spend every year grows to 200 million by exit time 2027 and on an annual basis. And the revenue share with Railtown is 20% of that. That's $40 million going to Railtown in 2028 and growing and thereafter for a long time. Well, we just read the point from TELUS CEO, and he expects to have 2 billion in ARR from AI enhanced technologies with a significant contribution from his data centers in 2028 and growing. But if we call that 2 billion, I always take half of that at 1 billion. You can pick a different number if you want to go lower, but I'm going to stick with that half of that revenue is shared with Railtown. And I'll use the same 20%. So I think that's 200 million in 2028 from the TELUS clients. This is projectable sooner than that, of course. So if you add that up, it's 240 million. In ARR, really in less than 3 years. I mean, it's 2 years. So the discount's not going to be huge on it in terms of valuation, but you're at 240 million ARR exiting 27, maybe for 28, but it's growing. And if this is because the Railtown platform is critical the growth could be enormous worldwide, but we don't know that yet. We don't know. So the two questions number one, you may not agree with my numbers. So you adjust for that downward or upward. And then you got to put a multiple of growth on this. Is it going to double every year? Is it going to accelerate from there? Or is it going to be more modest, grow 50% a year, 25% a year? Once you give an assumption on that, that gives your multiple. And I would argue that Railtown's multiple is going to be high. And that's for two reasons. I think this is 240 million. I think it's going to be mostly profit. So it's high margin. And I do think that this is going to have appeal perhaps across 400 data centers for Microsoft. So I think the projections of the growth rate are going to be high. I think analysts might, maybe not right now, but maybe in a year's time, might start projecting billion-dollar annual revenues to Railtown. So if I take the 240, this is a hot area, as we've discovered. I think the multiples won't be below 25x. And they might be as high as 100x or more. But I'm just going to give a number for the enterprise value at 25x, 35x, and 50x. And I think as soon as an analyst, whether internal or public, comes out with these kinds of projections, I think the buyouts will be made based on them, because the revenue, once it comes in, will stick for 20 years. So here's the three enterprise value scenarios with the ARR at 240 million at 100% almost and growing. At a 25x, the enterprise might be worth 6 billion, 35x over 8 billion, and 50x 12 billion. So it's a pretty simple matter of dividing that by 227 million shares. And again, that might be too many shares. You might want to reduce it. You might want to expand it, figuring they'll issue more. But I'll just go with that right now. So these are the numbers per share. At 25x, $26. I think that's what it says. Yeah. 26.43. At 35x, $37 a share. At 50x, it's a big one, 52.86. 52.86. Now that's based on 240 million in ARR and growing. But if there is the potential, just to go to the extreme, that the company coming out of a proof of concept with the one data center, if there's a bidding war between the major hyperscalers, if they go that route, that they can project $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion in revenue. And all of a sudden, this $52 can double or triple. I give that the lowest odds because I think the company's going to be bought, potentially anyway, prior to allowing that to happen. On the other hand, you just listened to John Ruffalo. He's now on the advisory board, and he very well may say, you know, we want to keep this in Canada. We don't want to sell it to Microsoft. And I want to show you one thing. I'll use our global number. We have 18,400,000 shares. I mean, some people might have sold, others haven't told me. I'm not saying it. I'm not giving. I think it's reasonably close. I've tried to be as accurate in recording it. I haven't written everything down because I think some people have BS'd me. But so I think it's reasonable. If you go to Yahoo Finance and you Trump looks confident. I guess he might know more than I do. It's not hard to know more than I do. Oh, please. Okay, so in US dollars, and assuming we all just hang on dutifully, and then I just have to give you the price. And if TELUS were to buy us for $3 billion, it'd be a 1-for-1 stock, US money. It'd be a 1-for-1 stock offer. So for every share of Railtown, you'd get 1 share of TELUS. Well, TELUS pays $1.23 in dividends. Right now, that 18,400,000 shares is worth, at 36 cents, It's worth 6,624,000. I don't know if that's our cost basis, but that's what it essentially, let's maybe call it 7 million. 6,624,000 is the value of those shares right now. But if TELUS were to buy it, the dividend's $1.23 every year. That position would earn 22 million in dividends. In other words, another way of saying it is it's almost 4 times, not quite, like 3.5 times this this value today would be coming every year in dividends if TELUS bought it, but it would only be at the $3 billion level. I don't know how high TELUS can go in a bidding war, but that would also be very attractive. So anyway, those are some of the things I sit and calculate. Oh gosh, it signed me out again. Okay. I don't know why that scared me. Railtown is 36 cents. Help is still down 2 cents at 103. Finger is up a penny at 137. GDC is 390. Nixie is 5591. Let's just see what options are on Finger. There's April. There's March calls. Wow. There's no premium on the March calls. The April calls, the $2 calls are 5 cents to sell. It's not much premium. I don't know. It's be a little hard to make any money on this. I'm talking about selling calls. It's not a lot of premium in those calls, so I don't think there's much to sell. The May calls, what are they? The 150s. Oh, you could get 25 cents for the 150s. You get 15 cents for the $2, but you have to wait about 65 days or less than that. But I would sell calls, probably, or some. Particularly, I would have hoped that there would be higher premium for next month, because then you're not tying it up as long. But anyway. All right, let me see if anybody's said anything, and I might conk out early unless there's some interesting topic, because I don't know how much more I have to say. The purple line, the 20-day, Ricky says the 20-day average is up to around 34.20. Let me look that up. I didn't print out a chart. I should have done that. Yeah, you're right. The 20-day is up to 33.9 on the service I'm looking at. So it's essentially what you're saying, 34.20, and that becomes a little bit of support. Yeah, it's certainly in their computers as a parameter to, if it starts trading. The stock has kind of rolled over a little bit. And I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get it to that 20-day moving average. But next week, the conference starts, and I think I'm going to be able to come on prior to 11 a.m. and we'll listen to the discussion at the conference, the pre-conference discussion on the 5 layers of, I forget if it's the data center stack or the orchestration frameworks, but there is a talk on it. We'll listen to it. And then at a little later, we'll keep talking, I assume. And then Jensen Huang comes on with his keynote, and we'll listen to that too. I think the stock chart looks good, Ricky. It looks like it's going up the stairs, It goes up and it's on a landing, it's on a level, a stair level, one for a few days, then it goes up, then it does that again, and then it goes up. And I think we'll see. There is obviously there's a chance that this conference is the beginning, but it's all behind the scenes. And we don't see a whole lot of movement until April. It's possible, but I wouldn't want to be naked this stock next week. AK is Alaska. All right. I knew that. No, I didn't really know. I don't think I've ever sent anything to Alaska. Makes sense, AK. Ricky Brogan just bagged. All right, Ricky. That's awesome. You guys, you're all of you are amazing. Amazing. Those are huge positions. All of these are just amazing positions. To me, anyway. Hopefully you'll be able to look back on this with great nostalgia of as you grow to my age over time. I think we've got some really good times ahead of us on this stock and this stock price. Let me just quickly check if there's anything war going on. And I think I might sign off. I have right after work, I have to be somewhere. I have to walk there, so I want to get ready for that. Over 2,000 Marines deployed to the Middle East. That refueling aircraft that crashed, everybody's dead. I hope my doom and gloom is wrong. I really do. I don't know who Tina Peters is, but she's not guilty. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign off. I know it's only 3 o'clock. Let's see where the prices are. I can't. They signed me out. I'm not going to sign back in. It's basically 36 cents. I just run out of things to say. So rather than just drone on repetitively, I'm going to sign off here at 3 o'clock, a little after 3 o'clock. And we'll take it from there. Let's see what somebody just wrote. Ricky says Dr. Tom Core reposted an event on LinkedIn. All right, let me see I don't know if I can get into that. Dr. Tom Core. Allow. LinkedIn. There's a bunch. There's more than one Dr. Tom Core, believe it or not. That's the right guy. Great to see the Railtown AI Canadian agentic framework products being made available to the participants in the hackathon. Hackathon. Can't wait to see what they come up with. Railtown AI, here, I'll show it to you. This is Dr. Tom Core. And then this is the post I'm reading. It's on LinkedIn. He says the future of AI is being built right now in Canada. This is Railtown's comments. Railtown AI is a proud sponsor of Gen AI Genesis 2026, Canada's largest AI hackathon. This Friday in Toronto, the world's brightest minds will gather to transform bold ideas into real-world impact. As a company dedicated to building robust AI development tools, we can't wait to see what this generation of builders will create. To help hackers push the boundaries of what's possible, we are opening access to Railtracks, our proprietary Canadian agentic framework under MIT license. If you are a developer looking to build complex, reliable, multi-agent systems at scale, Railtracks is your foundations. We invite all participants and professionals curious about the next wave of agentic AI to explore Railtracks now and get a head start on the competition. Winning teams who build with Railtracks will also be eligible for a $500 builder prize. Let's build AI that matters. See you in Toronto. And then they give a picture, and it says Railtown is a proud sponsor of this Toronto conference called Gen AI Genesis 2026. But I don't know. says this Friday. So that's today. So that's pretty exciting. That's really exciting, Ricky. Let me see if Corey. Let's see if Corey's said something about it. You would think he would have, don't you think so? Okay, let's see if he said anything. What he posted was techcouver.com, big signal for Vancouver's AI ecosystem. Vancouver-based Railtown AI Technologies has appointed heavyweight Canadian business leaders to its advisory board, including IBM COO Patrick Horgan, ex-Armour's CEO Michael Norbrega, and investor John Ruffalo. They joined Mike Lazaridis as the company scales its AI developer tools and agentic orchestration platform. Railtown is building a sovereign end-to-end Canadian AI ecosystem from talent to tooling to development. And they have a Techcouver story. March 9, written by Knowlton Thomas. Techcouver. Railtown AI Technologies has announced this week that it has appointed Canadian business leaders to its advisory board. The Vancouver-based AI developers tools and agentic orchestration company has added Pat Horgan, Michael Norbrega, and John Ruffalo. They join Research in Motion co-founder Mike Lazaridis. That's a powerful board. Horgan retired in 2017 from his role as COO at IBM, where he spent his entire career. Quote, Railtown demonstrates the strength of Canadian innovation and highlights the depth of AI talent and companies in the national ecosystem, he said. Norbrega, former CEO of the Ontario Municipal Employee Retirement System, brings leadership in institutional capital management and long-term investment strategy to Railtown. Quote, Railtown's core expertise provides a solution to emerging concerns from Canadian governments, businesses, and others about the country's digital sovereignty, he noted. Ruffalo, founder of Mavericks Private Equity and OMERS, says he is, quote, excited to join Railtown's advisory board at a defining moment for AI-driven software development, unquote. Railtown, quote, is building the tools that will power the next generation of intelligent applications, and I look forward to supporting its growth and impact, unquote, he said. Dr. Tom Core, co-founder of AI Partnerships, which Railtown recently acquired, joins the company as Director of Corporate Development. Railtown founder and CEO Corey Brandolini believes these appointments reflect the firm's, quote, mission to build out a truly Canadian end-to-end AI development ecosystem, unquote. Further quoting, as a Canadian technology company, we are proud to work closely with other Canadian technology providers to create a sovereign AI ecosystem that develops talent, drives innovation, and retains world-class capabilities right here in Canada, he stated. Further, the addition of Pat, Michael, John, and Tom strengthens our leadership as we continue to deliver on this vision. Railtown was founded in 2011, rebranding to an AI-focused entity in 2019. Today, the company develops advanced AI agentic frameworks and observability tools that empower businesses to build, deploy, and manage AI-driven solutions. The platform is purpose-built for companies and software development teams creating autonomous AI agents or integrating agentic capabilities into existing products and services. That's pretty cool. It's really cool. Right? I guess I got to sign in after that much time went by. Even though it takes a second to sign in. All right. All right. All right. All right. I had a friend that used to say that. All right. Fingers now up 2 cents to 138. That's all I see. Railtown's in the green. It's up half a penny. But I'm not getting a quote. Oh, lucky boy. Lucky boy. I hope he was happy at the end. All right, so fingers 137 to 139 on 222,000 shares. Railtown is 36 and a half, up half a penny on 21,000 shares, 21,280 shares. Wow. Last trade was 5,000 shares at 36.5. So you're telling me before the last trade, there was only 16,000 shares traded? Pretty amazing. That's a good sign. Jack said, "Look at you, go Donna." friendly competition. The CTO posted it as well. It's great. It really is. All right, everybody. I wish you peace individually, and I pray for peace in the world, and I pray there is a solution, and this can just be a relatively quick off-ramp, and we can get back to having a big, beautiful world. I doubt I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, but I might. Giuseppe had a dream last night that Jensen Hong called out Railtown during the keynote. Goodness. Well, I'll play it Monday. I'll play the keynote live if I figure out how to get in there. So we'll hear it when he does it. Wouldn't that be amazing? Stock doubles if that happens. Hell, it probably goes to 5 if that happens. All right. Peace.